Minah and Gilles-Maurice the Schryver, they are both following from Ghent University. Oh, how do I need to go? I know I have to do it there. Yes. So, oh, I forgot to repeat. I went to, okay. So that's the overview. You saw in the title the Historical Swahili Corpus, that is, and Rasmus also mentioned it, that is an important achievement within the project for which Gilles-Maurice de Schryver and Minah Nabirye have been essential. So I'll first talk about that, and then about the subjunctive in Swahili, kind of, we know a lot about it. I won't repeat everything, but I'm more interested in peripheral meanings and meanings that have been characterized as non-idiomatic or even non-modal meanings. Yeah, so the historical Swahili corpus, it's actually the second version. That's why it's 2.0. It's historical, it's a diachronic corpus. That means that you want to go as far back in the past as possible. It goes 4 centuries back, and then if you look at the periods, they are in these rainbow colors. The oldest are the red one, and the oldest, older, and old periods, they all scan 100 years, and then the periods become shorter once you go up. So middle is 50 years, that's between present and past. And then the contemporary periods are 25 years, and today is 1 year. And then, of course, it's much more difficult to find these old sources. So, and that is what you see. Let's look at this one. That's the same, but without the today. Then you see that for the oldest and older, we have 250,000 words, and then towards 1 million when you go to the more recent periods. And then there's lots, once you have it, there's lots that you can do, not only diachronically. You can also look at different sources, different types of sources. What are your data from? Is it all from poetry? Or and then you can also, and then that was for previous research. We have also indicated in the metadata of the corpus from where they come. So Kenya coast is broad divisions, Tanzania coast, Tanzania inland, Kenya inland. Okay, so, and I'll use it not to its full potential yet, but later on in the talk. So the subjunctive in Swahili, we all know it. We know it also from, just because it's very widespread. It has been reconstructed. It is, if we look at a form, you have, it's very closely related to the imperative paradigm. So because of this close relationship, you have hybrid forms like lete with this final a, twendeni, which has the plural literacy marker in Swahili, but that's normal for the imperative, but it is also on this subjunctive form. So, and this final a, although it's the characteristic of the subjunctive, it's not a sufficient characteristic. So you have languages which do not have final a, but do clearly have a subjunctive with tonal schemes that are related to the Proto-Bantu form, and then the a in itself is also not sufficient to be sure that you have a subjunctive. And that is, there you have the archaic, perfect hypothesis. So there has been in the 1930s and 1950s, especially with the Swahili Committee, there has been a lot of discussion about this A form in the use of the subjunctive in non-idiomatic contexts, and that maybe these are not subjunctives or now synchronically, but historically they are traces of an archaic perfect. And so I'm not going to, these are just screenshots from these. It started, I think, the discussion in 1936, and then there's all these very nice discussions like dialogues, but published dialogues between people also standardizing Swahili. And like Amani, they didn't like these non-idiomatic uses, so in this case, the subjunctive. Now, how likely is that? We know this perfective final, the ile final. Now, if you look at these, I think they're difficult to read. They're very small, probably. But you have in this old Swahili poetry, you have perfective forms. But you can see zifene, they would now be zimefana. But you see the ile has, it's called imbrication. So it went into the stem. So you have consonant and vowel changes of the stem, but not always. Sometimes, indeed, these archaic perfect forms really look like a subjunctive. So it is possible. And then if we look at what Bybee et al. On grammaticalization say, that if you have this old or archaic perfect, that's because of these discussions. If it's being replaced by me, then that will go gradually. And some of these archaic forms may be trapped in certain environments. So it is a possibility. Okay, I go on. Then the subjunctive. So this was the form. Now the core and the peripheral uses. I won't repeat elocution, so the imperative and what's all. Then you have modality. I think it's been agreed upon that it's the core meaning is weak or participant external necessity, some kind of obligation. And then like Givon, that's on Bemba mostly, and then Deule on Nyani on then Deule. And then they also both mention that some Bantu languages have peripheral epistemic possibility uses, so the may and might uses. And then Givon says like all Bantu languages have the obligation uses, but only Bemba has the possibility uses. But that was before people started working on modality more, so it pops up now. You see it more and more that languages use this epistemic possibility. Did I go on? Yeah, I wanted to, to show an example. Atakwenda patatabu na pengine yakatiwa jela bure kwa sababu hiyo. You see the pengine, and it's followed by a subjunctive form. So he maybe he might be, that's maybe over translated. And then lakini yawezekana liwe lenye asili ya Kibantu, it might have a Bantu origin. Now, so luckily, like Aaron and we have already seen this van der Aura and Plungian, but what I wanted to show is that, like, so the subjunctive, it's mainly here, it's maybe a bit vague between, it's mostly necessity, but weakened necessity. And if you go to questions like nipite, may I pass? It may also be deontic possibility. But then what it also expresses epistemic possibility, which is not accounted for here. I mean, this crossover, yes, if it goes there and there, but from these questions to epistemic possibility is a bit odd. So, and it certainly doesn't do epistemic necessity, like Rasmus also showed in his paper on lazima. Maybe other contact languages do, but Swahili doesn't. You would use the anterior, ni lazima umekupa uchungi mwingi. It must have caused you a lot of pain. But then you have the anterior me. So now a hypothesis is that you have the subjunctive in competition with ka. The ka has been called subsecutive, contingent, narrative, and actual. Leonard, I think that you pronounce it like that, says it's event questions, but neutral likelihood, so it may or may not happen. And it competes often with the subjunctive. they are both dependent tenses, both less than completely finite. And this is, I think, the example from Leonard is nice, like this conversation between a man and his wife, and his wife, she first says that she thinks like, Bora ukaniacha, because of the circumstances, it would be better to leave me. And then the husband makes it more forceful. He said, should I leave you? And then she also replies, yes, you should. So it is different, and you see the same with mpaka. Mpaka can be followed by this ka, mpaka can be followed by the subjunctive. If it is followed by ka, it is more like a logical result. But then if you see the subjunctive, you have this, what made you so afraid is, wogope mpaka utake kumrukia mwanao. So that you had to jump on your child, which is, again, this necessity reading, at least for me, but we can discuss that. So then thinking about the competition for the epistemic possibility readings, I also started thinking about negation. So the negation of the subjunctive, both the subjunctive and the ka, is done by the negative subjunctive. So, so I wonder if maybe the use of the negative subjunctive in epistemic possibility, because it's the counterpart of this contingent or subsecutive ka, that it might have triggered also the use of the subjunctive for epistemic possibility. And then you have this, huenda is mostly followed, so the huenda may be typically followed by ka. The negative counterpart would be the negative subjunctive. You see the ka starts in the old period, now we come to the corpus. Negative subjunctive we start finding it in the middle period, but the subjunctive comes only later in the present. So, and it's less quantitatively, it occurs less, but it could be triggered by exactly this one. So consider that a hypothesis. Then I'm out of breath, sorry. And I'm not even doing a lot. But then you have these non-modal uses. This is the full list, but we'll go through them if I have enough time. That's why I'm out of breath. I'm worried about my time. What? Okay. So yeah, this is a general thing like, okay, if you see that you have this, you can define the subjunctive in terms of modality, but yeah, but then it goes out and it does other things. Maybe you need another kind of meaning, this semantic definition. And also what I think is very important is to not look only at that form, but really also look at competition with other forms. And Cressels actually also mentions this, that it is important to do that, to understand what we have seen people do here, of course. Okay, the first one, ndio kwanza. It is mentioned, so I also always give like the grammars that I know of that mention this use, ndio kwanza plus subjunctive. You find it not only with the subjunctive, you find it with the progressive, that's the oldest use. Then the anterior, which starts in the middle period, subjunctive starts rather late. If it's progressive, you have, and she is now just waking up. So it's this just, it is described in the grammars as a recent past, but there it is this emphatic progressive. And then you have the recent past with the anterior. And then the subjunctive does kind of both. You have, even though he had only just come back with a subjunctive, so that's this recent past reading like the anterior. And then you have also, and now he is only just realizing it, and it was Dora who woke him up. There you have the impression that he had to realize it before, but he didn't. So it is something that had to happen, but it didn't. So here I would, it looks like, well, it's tempting to conclude that the recent past use is a petrified archaic perfect, and the other use is a separate development, but both uses are only attested in the recent time period. So it's a bit of a puzzle still. Let's say that if it is a trace, then the subjunctive is gaining ground. So these kind of, it had to happen, readings are getting more important. Then you have karibu and nusura, also plus subjunctive. It's also not mentioned in every grammar, but it is mentioned in grammar. So Albert almost burst into tears. It starts in the middle period, this use of the subjunctive after both karibu and nusura. It's almost, I think, obligatory after nusura. I might be wrong, but don't find, but not after karibu. And there, of course, this is counterfactual because it didn't happen. So that's irrealis, that be part of the subjunctive. And it's also kind of, this had to happen, but it didn't. So I also see this participant external necessity reading in it. Then you have another nice one, which I didn't see in grammars, is that you have, but it occurs quite, well, I have at least 40 instances, mara plus subjunctive, often set in the past. So again, it could be this archaic perfect, but here you clearly see it's this, if you use the subjunctive, it's not just he did this and then he did that. No, it's like this uncontrolled. He couldn't control himself, so he turned that way, stood up and sat down again. He could not at all keep calm. He just had to move. And then, so it starts in the recent period. And then I also, okay, I looked for mara and a verb ending in e, but this is an archaic perfect. Suddenly, something happened, but it's not the mara construction. So, okay. So it signals lack of control, reduced agency. Then the tangu one is the best described one. There's this whole discussion about it. I cannot go into it, but like this very puristic, you cannot use it. It's wrong to use it after tangu, but it is used. And then, so what do you get if you look for it? A lot of subjunctives, 120, 188 is lipo, is this relative form with po, and then you also have the anterior me. The lipo starts, finally, one in the oldest. It starts there, and it goes on. Me starts in old, subjunctive is more recent, in the middle period. So, yeah, let's look just at this oldest. It's from the man. It's epic poetry. You have tangu walipopambana. Die Zeit von der ab der Führer, it goes on, so since. Now, if we, so it seems that this relative form is most grounded, both time-wise and also quantitatively, yes. And then you have the me, these are less grounded quantitatively, but also they are more recent. And then it's the archaic perfect hypothesis seems to make sense in this context also because it's this subordinate context. And like before the middle period, all instances of tangu plus a verb form with final a are perfects, are archaic perfects. Okay. So I think this is the best candidate to really be an archaic perfect. And then you come to these questions like mbona plus a subjunctive and nini, and it's especially the negative subjunctive. So there I think that it is this kind of like, why did you do something? Why didn't you do that? It's contingent on what happened before. So something happened and you were expected to do something, but you didn't. which is, I think, just negation of subsecutive ka. But because of the use of this negative, the subjunctive is also, the affirmative subjunctive is also often used after mbona and nini. But it also has this participant external necessity reading, like you have nini mkae nje, why should you sit outside? Like you are obliged to sit outside, but you aren't. Okay. Then you have, that's actually a case study because it's often so, it's clear that the negative subjunctive is used as a negative subsecutive, but also as a negative simultaneous tense. And asijue is very common. So you say like, he was sitting there not knowing what to do, then you would say asijue la kufanya. And so, yeah, it starts in the old periods, and it looks like a negative counterpart of this subsecutive, or contingent ka and the situative key. So again, not an archaic. Perfect, and this is the last one. So we're getting there. Then there's this use that I actually didn't know. I only know it so, of course, we know the hajafika. He has not yet arrived, which has this auxiliary to come, but it's grammaticalized. But some grammars mention this asijue, a negative subjunctive of the verb to come, plus a verbal base in a, also expressing before or not yet. The odd thing is that it is in our historical corpus, it only occurs in one source. There it occurs, it's all over the place. It occurs 73 times. It's in this Sacleux prayers. No, the life of and so here you have mkewe lakini akafa asije mzalia mwana. So his wife died before she gave birth to a child for him. The before use is only in the middle period, only in this Sacleux source, whereas the use as a negative goal, which is a subjunctive use, I mean, it's within this participant external necessity, starts earlier. So this is really a puzzle. I don't know exactly what's going on there. Of course, other languages also use a subjunctive to express before, other Bantu languages. And it could maybe rather mean something like negative concomitance, like without. And then it's again a negative situative, which the negative subjunctive can do. But otherwise, it's typically, this form, asije plus verbal base, typically expresses negative goal. And the before use in subordinate context is replaced or almost entirely replaced by kabla hadiafa, so this incompletive negative tense. Okay, so conclusions. So this Swahili subjunctive, I think the weak participant external necessity meaning stands. The crossover to epistemic possibility might sometimes be instigated through the use of the negative subjunctive as a counterpart of this contingent ka tense. And then if we look at the idiomatic uses, the ones that are, I think, really participant external necessity, like something had to happen, are marked in yellow. The ones that remain are still a bit puzzling and need a more detailed look at all the examples that we found in the corpus. So that's for further research. Thank you.
we do have, thank you very much, Maud, for this very interesting talk. We do have some minutes for comments, questions. Yes.
Okay, thank you for this chance. Thank you for presenting. While you were translating a sentence, kwa nini mkae nje, I got some errors. Instead of appearing like, why sit outside? I think it could sound better to say, why stay outside? Or why do you stay outside? Instead of using sit, you use stay. It brings meaning. Thank you.
Do you think you could try to talk, Anna Veselovsky? Or do you want to write in the chat? If it doesn't work?
Can you hear me? Fine.
Very well.
Yeah, okay, great. Maud, thank you very much. This is a very exciting talk, and there is so much data that shows us how much work there is to be done in ground to cover. So this is really exciting. And my first question is if this is going to be shared, the slides, I mean, to be able to go over the examples in a slower pace. So if you could share that, that would be really amazing.
I cannot say yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have a question about the archaic perfect and subjunctive. There is still there are a lot of questions, and I wonder if we at this point you have any ideas of what these archaic perfect forms or uses tell us about the synchronic use of the subjunctive. Should these be analyzed as two different things, or it is still subjunctive, like in that direction? So should we distinguish between subjunctive forms, like regular subjunctive and archaic perfect when doing, for instance, corpus studies or whatever it is?
Yeah, I think you couldn't hear that well sometimes, but I think I got your point. So I would say they are all subjunctives. I mean, they are reanalyzed as subjunctives, and I think like maybe the ndio kwanza use and maybe also the asijue use that they are reanalyzed, and so their meaning also goes more towards this participant external necessity interpretation, which I feel does not happen for tangu. But there's very many examples of tangu, so I try to kind of look at tangu plus a verb in the with the relative form, or a verb in the subjunctive with the same verb, and really compare, so keep the context as similar as possible and see whether I could find a difference in meaning, but until now I haven't. But it needs more work to see, like, there's some, if people would analyze it as a subjunctive, so it's reanalyzed as a subjunctive, does it mean that it goes more towards this participant external necessity reading? But I haven't seen that yet. So it looks like really trapped somehow, but then very frequently used because it is a subjunctive and people use the subjunctive all the time.
So you believe this to be a reflex of the construction it is used in, rather than the inherent meaning of the subjunctive or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and a follow-up question, like going to what you started with and the subjunctive marking and the role of tone. In these less typical uses of the subjunctive in the modern day Swahili, is it possible to figure out what's happening with the tone in these like archaic perfect forms or something? Is it the same pattern with respect to tone? And also the negative subjunctive, is it the same pattern or something else is happening?
As far as I know, Swahili doesn't have tones, so that doesn't, that you couldn't make a distinction on that level.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. This is very interesting, and it will be exciting to see it develop further work. Thank you.
So thank you very much for all your questions and for your great talk, Maud. So yeah, or Amani, would you want to share? Amani, would you like to? Thank you, Maud.